Okay, so first of all, we have to be careful that we are using the right formula for the right sequence. Formulas mix up nahi karne. You use arithmetic formulas, arithmetic series wale formulas for an AP and GP formulas for a GP, right? Don't mix them up. So first of all, in the first part, we are given that the sum of the first, actually, we have to find the sum of the first 10 terms of a GP that looks like this. Iska sum find karna, right? So it's a pretty straightforward application of the formula. हम इस formula में values input करनी है. Sum of the first 10 terms. So first of all, it's a GP. We say this is a GP. It's a geometric regression. What is the value of A? I'm just going to write down the sequence first here. 81, 54, 36. Okay. What is A? A is 81, the first term, right? Geometric regression ke andar, what is the other thing that you need? The other thing that you need is the ratio. What's the ratio here? What is the ratio in this sequence? Any idea? What's the ratio? How do you calculate that?
Sir, it's 2 by 3.
It's 2 over 3. And how do we do that? We say the next term divided by the previous term, right? So कोई भी term, कोई भी दो consecutive terms ले लें. Divide them. So if I take these two terms, I say 54 divided by 81. That's my ratio. And that gives me 2 over 3. That's the ratio. Okay, so we've got the value of A, we've got the value of R. What do we need now? We need sum of the first 10 terms. What is the sum formula for a GP? It's Sn equals A into 1 minus R raised to power n divided by 1 minus R. We just input values here now. S10, that's 81 into 1 minus 2 over 3 whole raised to power 10 divided by 1 minus 2 over 3. And that's your sum to the first sum of the first 10 terms. Okay, you can evaluate this using a calculator, but make sure that you are inputting the values correctly in your calculator. You should have a newer version of a calculator that can do fractions for you. इसमें fractions हो सकती हो इस तरह से. ठीक है? If you don't have that, please make sure you buy one that has that. I already told you about one calculator that has the maximum number of functions that are allowed in the Cambridge exam. So you should ideally have that, but at least you should have something that can deal with fractions like this. Fraction आप directly उसमें input कर सको ताकि आपको बहुत सारे brackets ना use करने पड़ रहे हो वहाँ पे. So you put this in your calculator. You can do this directly, or you can do it step by step. You can take, 81 into 1 minus 2 over 3 whole raised to power 10. इसको इकट्ठा evaluate कर लें एक दफ़ा. Denominator में you've got 1 over 3. And then in the second step, you can do that. So however you're comfortable, just make sure that you're not doing any careless errors here. If you feel after doing it a few times that you're not getting the correct answers when you input these numbers directly in the calculator, then probably it's better that you do it step by step. But if you're comfortable inputting everything in the calculator directly, you can do that, and that's fine. So what do we get? What do we get inside the brackets here? 1 minus 2 over 3 whole raised to power 10. What is this?
Sir, 0.9826.
0.9826. So that's good. At least 4 significant figures in the working, right? इससे कम नहीं होनी चाहिए, इससे ज़्यादा हो सकती है. It should not be less than this. So this is fine. And then you calculate your S10, 81 times 3 into 9.9826, and you see what you get from that. What do we get?
238.77.
238.79.
238.79.
So that's 238.79. That is the sum of the first 10 terms. Okay, so just input values in the formula and you get a result. Okay. Now in the second part it says, find the sum of all the terms in this arithmetic regression. So it's an AP now. And the terms are from 180 to 25. Okay, so that's an AP. Let's write that down here. So we have an AP and the terms are starting from 180, 175, 170, all the way until 25. Okay, so this is the sequence that we've got. It's an AP. Now, what exactly is required to define an AP? We need the first term. We already have the first term, that is 180. So that's pretty straightforward. 180 हमारे पास आ रहा है. What about the difference? What's the difference in this case? 5?
Yes.
Is the difference 5?
Yes, sir.
-5.
It's going to be -5, right? The values are decreasing. So how did we used to do it? We said next term minus the previous term. बाद वाली term से पहले वाली term minus करनी है. Take any two consecutive terms. And then you say, for example, for the first two terms, you say 175 minus 180, and that gives you -5. Okay? So this is a very common mistake. Be careful. Next term में से previous term minus करनी है. Okay? So you have the difference and you have the first term. Okay. Now, how do you find sum of an arithmetic series? We have the formula for that. We have half n into a plus l. That's one formula. And the other is half n into 2a plus n minus 1 into d. Which one of these formulas should we be using? Which formula should we be using? Should we use the first formula or the second formula?
Sir, the second formula.
The second formula? That will work.
Sir,
but
we are given with the last term.
we
we
are
can
given
use
the
the
last
first
term,
one.
right? So we can use the first one as well. Actually, the second one can always be used, okay? But the first one will make things simpler in cases when we have the last term given, right? So it's easier to use the first term here, even though the second one is also going to work, right? उसमें आपको उसका calculation थोड़ी सी ज़्यादा करनी पड़े, but that will also work. But in this case, since we have the last term given, we use the one that has the last term, okay? Achha. Let me write down the formula here. That is Sn equals half n into a plus l. We have the value of a, we have the value of d. Last term bhi hame pata hai. The last term is 25. So we can input a here, we can input l here. The problem is we don't really have n. N kya hai? Number of terms kitni hai? So what do we do about that?
So we can find that using the nth term formula.
We can find that using the nth term formulas. You see, you have terms going like this: 180, 175, 170, and so on, all the way until 25. Now, in order to be able to calculate the sum of all those terms, we need to know what is the number of terms. Ye kitne terms in total, right? That's the problem. Now, what you can do is, you can say these are n terms. How many pata hai iski value kya hai? So what is the last term here? What is the nth term? The nth term, this is term number n, right? This is term number n. Iski value 25 hai. तो ये कौन सा नंबर है इस टर्म का? We have the term formula for that. So we know that Tn is equal to a plus n minus 1 times the difference. तो इस सीक्वेंस का nth टर्म हमारे पास क्या आ रही होगी? इसकी nth टर्म हमारे पास है Tn equals a, which is 180, plus n minus 1 times the difference. The difference is minus 5. That gives us 180 minus 5n plus 5, and that is 185 minus 5n. The nth term of this sequence is given by this. आप कोई भी टर्म आपने फाइंड करनी हो, फॉर एग्जांपल n की वैल्यू आप 1 इनपुट करो, you get 180. You input n equals 2, you get 175. You input n equals 3, you get 170. तो n की क्या वैल्यू इनपुट करेंगे आपको 25 मिलेगा? You say let's input Tn equals 25. आपको पता है कि उस टर्म की वैल्यू क्या है? The term's value is 25. You input 25 in place of Tn, and that is going to give you the value of n, कि उसका term number exactly क्या है? That's 185 minus 25, which is 160, and n turns out to be 32. So ये जो आपके पास 25 है, it's actually the 32nd term. Does that make sense? Is this clear to everyone? So we had to find the sum. We have n here. We first have to find the value of n, given number of terms kitni hai. So this is how we can do that. We know that the last term is the nth term was 25. Using that, we can find the value of n. जब आपके पास n की value आ गई, you put that back in this formula, and you get half. So now you've got S32. S32 आपने निकालना है. 32nd term, 32 terms का sum निकालना है. That's half into 32 into a. A is 180. Plus L, which is 25. And that will give us the sum. That's 16 into 205. What do we get from this? What do we get here? 16 into 205.
The answer is 3280.
3280. Okay, so that's the sum of those terms that we have in the arithmetic series. Is that okay? Any issues with this? Okay, so the first and last terms of an arithmetic regression are 12 and 48 respectively. Let's write them down. अच्छा, इससे पहले हम क्या करेंगे? We will copy our formulas here so that we have them in front. Okay, so part A. The first and last terms of an arithmetic regression are 12 and 48. So first of all, we're given it's an AP, it's an arithmetic regression. The first term is 12. We can say A is 12. And the last term is 48. We can say L is 48. The sum of the first four terms is 57. अच्छा, L, remember हम last term की बात कर रहे हैं इस पूरे sequence की. We can call this the nth term as well, right? End पे जो आपके पास last number होगा. It says the sum of the first four terms is 57. अच्छा, sum of the first four terms is 57. That's another piece of information that we've got. That means S4 is equal to 57. Find the number of terms in the progression. Number of terms यानी कि n की value हमें figure out करनी है. So how do we think about this? We have some pieces of information given. Last time उसने बताया 48 है. So you can say अगर n terms in total, if there are n terms in total, you can say Tn, the nth term is 48. Does that make sense? If the total number of terms is n, then the nth term is given to be 48. So what we can do is, we can say, let's use the term formula. Tn equals a plus, remember it's an AP, so AP wale formulas. This is the term formula. Tn equals a plus n minus 1 times the difference. What is the nth term? That's 48. What is a? A is 12. n हमें नहीं पता n की वैल्यू फिगर आउट करनी है ताकि हमें नंबर ऑफ टर्म्स पता चल जाए टोटल. -1 into the difference. Again, the difference is also unknown. यहाँ पर difference भी नहीं पता हमें. ठीक है? So let me actually explain this a bit more. What we have is the sequence 12 से start करें. We're going all the way until 48, saying there are n terms in total. There are n terms in total. ठीक है? तो इसलिए फिर हमारी जो nth term है, that is 48. इसको यूज करके हम ये n की वैल्यू फिगर आउट करना चाह रहे हैं. Okay? So term formula use करके we got this relationship between n and d. We have another piece of information given as well, and that is that the sum of the first 4 terms of the sequence is 57. Now, which one of these two formulas should we be using? Should we be using this formula or should we be using this formula? Anyone? Do we have the last term given? Should we use this formula or should we use this formula?
The
With
first
last term or without? Yes?
The one with the last
For-
term can be used.
The one with the last term? What would be the last term in that case? Remember, we've got S4 here. हमने क्या कहा था? जो L होता है वहां पे, what exactly does that L mean? The number of terms that you're considering, for example, if you have S4, we're looking at the 4th term. 4th term जो है, that would be the last term in this case. ठीक है, इस formula के अंदर. So if we come here, do we know the 4th term? Since we have S4 given, 4th term हमें पता है, हमें 4th term नहीं पता, right? So what we do is we use this formula. When you're confused, when you're not sure, you use this formula. This will work every time. ठीक है? ये formula बहुत rarely use हो रहा होगा, relatively rarely. This will work every time. ठीक है? यहाँ पे last term का मतलब remember इस formula में क्या होता है? जितनी values आप consider कर रहे हो, उसमें जो last term है. For example, if you're adding 4 terms, what is the 4th term? That's the last term in that case. ठीक है? यहाँ पे 48 as last term नहीं use कर सकते when we are calculating S4. Does this make sense to everyone?
Yes.
So what we say is, we have the sum formula. The sum formula looks like this. Sn equals half n into 2a plus n minus 1 times the difference. Now what is sum of the 4 terms? S4 उसने हमें कहा हुआ है वो 57 है. We can input n की value 4 here, so that's half into 4. We have a is 12. We do not know n. In fact, in this case, we know n. n की value यहाँ पे क्या है? 4 terms की बात करें, n की value 4 input कर देंगे. -1 times the difference. Difference is unknown. Difference हमें नहीं पता. ठीक है? We simplify this. S4 हमें पता है क्या था? It was 57. We input 57 here. That equals 2 into 24 plus 3 times d. And that gives us 57 equals 48 plus 6 times d. 6d equals 9 and d equals 1.5. Difference की value आ गई आपके पास. When you have the value for the difference, you input this In the other equation now, इसको आप जाके वहाँ पे input कर दोगे, you get 48 equals 12 plus n minus 1 times the difference, which is 1.5. And you get the value of n from here. That's the total number of terms. So that you get 48 equals 12 plus 1.5n minus 1.5. And then you just simplify this. This gives us 1.5n equals 37.5, and then n turns out to be 25. So there have to be 25 terms in this sequence. Okay, so this is what we have in the second part now. The third term of a GP, so सबसे पहले we're talking about a GP. This third term is 4 times the first term. What does that mean? We say third term, that's T3, is equal to 4 times the first term. First term क्या होती है? उसको हम A से represent करते हैं. So it's 4 times A. Okay, so that's what is given. The second thing that we're told is the sum of the first 6 terms is K times the first term. What that means is X6 is equal to K times A. ये दो pieces of information हमें पता है, ठीक है? Using this, we have to find the possible values of A. So what do we do now? We have the geometric series formulas. We have a term formula for that, and we have a sum formula for that. We're just going to use them. Term formula क्या होता है? It's Tn equals A r raised to power n minus 1. And the sum formula is A into 1 minus r raised to power n divided by 1 minus r. What do we have here? We've got the third term given. ठीक है, तो हम क्या करते हैं? हम T3 find करते हैं से. We say T3 should be A r. We don't know what the value of r either. R is as well. So we have A r raised to power 3 minus 1. उसने हमें बताया है the third term is 4 times A. We input that here. We say 4A equals AR square and 4 equals R square. Does that make sense? Any problems with this?
No.
So what is going to be the value of R now? What is R?
2
2.
or minus 2.
2 or minus 2. We've got two possibilities here, right? So we've got plus minus 2. There are two possibilities. You get that from here as well. So I basically just scrolled up to see whether we were given any restriction for R. Do we given that R has to be positive or anything like that? We're not given that. It doesn't say that in the question. The other thing that we see here is it says find the possible values of K. That means there are going to be multiple values of K. And where will they come from? They will actually come from these two different values of R. So there are two different values of R, either plus 2 or minus 2. We will use them one by one in the other formula. So what do we have in the other formula? We have the sum formula for a GP, Sn equals A into 1 minus R raised to power n divided by 1 minus R. We know that S6 is equal to K times A. So हम क्या करते हैं? We find S6. S6 is going to be A into 1 minus R raised to power 6 divided by 1 minus R. S6 क्या है? That is Ka. We input that here. And that gives us K times A equals A into 1 minus R raised to power 6 divided by 1 minus R. Now, A and A get cancelled, right? A and A get cancelled. What are we left with? We're left with K equals 1 minus r raised to power 6 divided by 1 minus r. What do we do now? We input r equals 2. एक दफा r equals 2 input कर देते हैं. Or we input r equals minus 2 and we get two possible values of k from that. When r equals 2, we get k equals 1 minus 2 raised to power 6 divided by 1 minus 2. When r equals minus 2, we get k equals 1 minus 2 raised to power 6 divided by 1 minus 2. Okay, if we evaluate this, 1 minus 2 raised to power 6, that's actually 1 minus 64 divided by minus 1. And here we've got 1 minus, again, it's also going to be 64 because वो minus जो है वो उसके अंदर है, even power है, it's going to become positive. 1 minus 64 divided by 1 minus 2, which is 1 plus 2, and that's 3. So we get minus 63 over minus 1, which is 63. That's one possible value of k. And from the other one, we get minus 63 divided by 3, which is minus 21. These are the two possible values of k that we get. Okay, so this is the information that we're given for the AP and the GP. This is the AP, this is the GP. Okay, so what are we given next? We are given that the sum of all the terms in the GP is equal to sum of all the terms in the AP. दोनों के sums equal है. Given this, we have to find the first term and the last term of the arithmetic progression. So A find करनी उसकी जो last term होगी वो find करनी है, given that there are 21 terms in total. Okay, let's think about it. What we do is we say the sum of the AP and GP, they have to be equal. So sum of GP should be equal to the sum of the AP. अच्छा, अब AP में देखा हमारे पास difference दिया हुआ है. We are not given the last term, so we should be using the formula without the last term. GP का formula हमारे पास होता है a into 1 minus r raised to power n divided by 1 minus r. GP में we've got half n into 2 times a plus n minus 1 times the difference. अच्छा, now we have to be careful. This a and this a are different. This n and this n are different. वो लेफ्ट साइड पे AP की बात हो रही है, राइट साइड पे GP की बात हो रही है. इनफैक्ट हम इक्वेट करते हैं इसको भी, हम पहले उनको इवैल्यूएट कर लेते हैं अलग अलग से. लेट्स एक्चुअली इवैल्यूएट बोथ ऑफ देम सेपरेटली ताकि वो कंफ्यूजन नहीं हो वेरिएबल्स की. So we are evaluating each one of them separately first, as in simplifying each one of them. For the GP, the first term is 192. Ratio is 1.5. The number of terms was 6. So 1.5 raised to power 6 divided by 1 minus 1.5. For the AP, we've got half into n. The number of terms here is 21. Remember, सारे terms की बात हो रही है. Sum of all the terms in the GP and sum of all the terms in the AP. So all the terms in the AP, how many are there? There are 21 terms. So we've got half into 21 multiplied by 2 into the first term. Well, that's not given. Plus n. N again is 21 terms in total. Minus 1 times the difference. The difference is given, that's 1.5. ठीक है, यहाँ से क्या आएगा? You will get the value of A. Now you equate both of them. You've got only one variable, that's A. A की value आप यहाँ से figure out कर लेंगे. ठीक है? A will be the first term. Let's actually do this very quickly. So 192. ये left side पे क्या आता है? Anyone? What do we got on the left side?
Sir, it's minus 10.39.
The whole thing after division?
No, sir. Sir, it's total 3990.
3990. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now on the right side, वो 2 common आके divide हो जाएगा. You will have 21a plus 315, I think, or something like that. You'll get the value of a from here. ठीक है, a की value आपके पास आ जाएगी. When you have the value of a, you need the last term. Last term AP की क्या होगी? 21st term. A की value जो आपके पास आ जाएगी, you'll just find the 21st term after that. T21, that will be A plus N, which is 21, minus 1 times the difference. The difference was 1.5. इसके अंदर values input करेंगे, you'll get the last term from here as well. ठीक है, ये आप कर सकते हैं. A की value क्या आती है? Anyone? What's the value of A? What is the value of A?
Sir, 175.
So A is 175. 175 यहाँ पर आएगा. You put that in the term formula, and you get the value of the last term from that as well. ठीक है? ये आपके पास last term आ जाएगा. Okay? So you can evaluate that. You can let me know what that is. But that's it for today. Tomorrow we will discuss sum to infinity, and you have to make sure that you attempt some of the questions that I assigned as well. ताकि फिर उसमें problems आ रही हैं तो वो भी हम discuss करेंगे. There are some other types of questions, for example, in which we've got word problems. We will be discussing those as well. But that's it for today. I'll see you all again tomorrow. Can somebody tell me the answer for this?
205.
205. So this is 205. This is the last term. Okay. So we have to find the sum of all the integers between 100 and 400 that are divisible by 7. So find the sum of all integers between 100 and 400 that are divisible by 7. Sum find करना है. How do we do this? What type of sequence is it going to be? Is it going to be an AP or a GP? Anyone? Is it an AP or a GP? Divisible by 7. What could some terms be in the sequence? 100 or 400 के दरमियान में, what is the first factor of 7? First factor of 7 that's greater than 100. 100, is that a factor? First multiple of 7, not factor. Multiple of 7. 100, is that a multiple of 7? It's not. 101, that's also not. 102, 3, 4, 5. 105 is a multiple of 7. So that's going to be the first term in the sequence, right? So we are looking for all integers between 100 and 400, which are divisible by 5. यानी कि वो 7 के multiples हो. 100 से 100 के पास जो first multiple हमें मिलता है, that is 105. So that's where the sequence starts from. Then the next would be 112, then 119, then 126, and so on, all the way until the last number below or equal to 400 that is divisible by 7. So what would be the last number in this sequence? Anyone? 400, is that divisible by 7? 400, that's 50. No, that's not. 400 क्या आएगा?
Is it 399?
Sorry?
399 is divisible by 7.
39. Your voice is breaking, whoever is that. 390 what? 399 जो है वो क्या वो divisible है? 399, it should be, right? So 399 is divisible by 7. So the last term here is going to be 399. Okay. So this is the sequence. Right? आप क्या करोगे? You start from 100. You start looking for the multiples of 7. The first multiple of 7 that you get is 105. So that's where the sequence starts from. And for the end, you start from 400 and you go backwards. 400 को check करते हो, that's not divisible by 7. उससे नीचे आपके पास 399. Well, that is divisible by 7. So that is your last number in the sequence. What type of sequence is this then? The difference is constant. So this is an arithmetic progression. It's an AP. What do we need to know about an AP? We need to know about the first term of the AP. First term here is 105, and the difference is 112 minus 105, which is 7. So we know about the first term of the sequence, and we know about the difference. First term पता चल गया, difference पता चल गया. What do we need here? We need the sum of all these integers. Sum चाहिए इस पूरे sequence का. इसका sum चाहिए. अच्छा. Now, we know the last term of the sequence, right? So हमें इन सब का sum चाहिए. The sum of all these terms is can be calculated using one of these two formulas, either this one or this one. So जिन values का हमें sum calculate करना है, उनमें से last value में पता है, the last number is 399. So we can use this formula, the first one here. ये वाला formula हम यहाँ पे use कर सकते हैं, a plus l वाला. Let's use that. Let's say Sn equals 1 over 2 into a plus l. We can use this particular formula. Now, half into n, I missed n there, so it's half into n into a plus l. Now, the problem is we do not really know the value of n there. N की value हम क्या लिखेंगे वहाँ पे? A तो हमें पता है, the first term is 105, the last term is 399. The problem with this is, in fact, it's going to be the problem with both formulas. अब ये भी दूसरा भी use करते हैं, उसमें भी वही problem है. N आप कैसे figure out करोगे, right? So we have to apply the sum formula. इसमें n की value हमें नहीं पता, a और l की values पता है. How do you find the value of n now? N represents the number of terms in the sequence. How do you find that?
Sir, you can use the nth term formula since you have the first term and the common difference. From that, you can find what number of term it is.
Yes, so that's very good. We know that the number of terms, we have a total of n terms here, right? So the last term here is the nth term. Or you can say this is Tn. So what we can do is we can use the term formula, which is Tn equals a plus n minus 1. We know the first term. The first term is 105. N is unknown. We have to figure it out. But we know the difference, which is 7. We know the value of this last term. The value of this term is 399. This number is 399. So that term is 399. हम क्या कर सकते हैं? We can input this term equal to 399, and then we can find कि अच्छा ये n की value यहाँ से क्या मिलती है? That would be the number of this particular term. कि ये इस term का number क्या है? ये किस number के ऊपर आ रही है? Right, so how do you find that? You find the value of n from here. It becomes 399 equals 105 plus 7n minus 7. You make n the subject here. You get 7n equals 399 minus 98. That is 301. Is that correct? So n की value पे क्या आ जाती है यहाँ से? It's going to be 43. Right? Is this correct?
Yes.
Right, so n की value 33 आ गई. What we do now is we input this there and the other formula. So this is going to be 43. And now we just evaluate this and get the value of the sum. Okay, so we are basically looking for sum of the 43 terms in that sequence. So what does this turn out to be? What is this thing?
Uh, 10836.
10836. So that is the sum 10,836. Okay? So that's the sum of all of these terms. Any questions on this? Any problems? You could have used the other formula here as well. So as I told you, this second formula works in every single case. ये आप हर जगह पे use कर सकते हो. So you could have used this as well. You would get the same result from that. इसमें क्योंकि brackets ज़्यादा हैं, calculation थोड़ी सी ज़्यादा complicated हो जाती है, but the end result is going to be the same. That's not going to be any different. We're going to discuss. अच्छा इसमें एक नई चीज़ आ रही है, and that is when you have something like this, that they give you some formula themselves. You've got this formula given here, and what you have to do is you have to find the first term and the common difference using this particular formula. Now let's see how we're going to do this. We are given that the sum of the AP, so there's an AP that we're talking about. So this is an arithmetic progression. We are given that the sum of this arithmetic progression is 2n square plus 8n. That is what we are given. What we have to do is we have to find the first term and the common difference. So before I do this, any ideas? What could we do here? Remember some formula for an AP? What did it used to look like? It was Sn equals half n into 2a plus n minus 1 times the difference. This is one of the two formulas. Since we need the difference and the first term, this is the formula in which we have both of them. First term and the difference. दूसरी जो formula होता है उसमें a plus l होता है, first term and last term. हमें first term और difference चाहिए, that's why we are considering this. So we know that this is the formula for the sum to an AP. उसने हमें कहा हुआ है the sum to this AP is actually 2n square plus 8n. Given this, we have to find the value of a and d. How can we do this? Any ideas?
Can we solve them
it would-
simultaneously?
Okay, so can we solve them simultaneously? So that's a good idea. But think about it. We've got a here. So you're saying we equate both of them, right? So they have to be the same. Let's equate both of them. We get half n into 2a plus n minus 1 times the difference. And on the other side, we've got 2n square plus 8n. Now, can we really solve them simultaneously? We've got three variables. We've got n, we've got d, we've got a, and there's only one equation that we have. How can we solve this simultaneously? नहीं कर सकते, right? Simultaneously solve नहीं कर सकते. Because there are three unknowns, there's only one equation. What else can we do?
Sir, we could simplify the first formula we have and we could compare them to find A and D. That way we wouldn't have to solve N right now.
Yes, exactly. So you see, we are given that this is the sum of this AP. We know the sum of the AP is also given by this thing. What that means is these two things have to be identical to each other. These two have to be identical to each other. They have to be exactly the same. Right? में कोई difference नहीं होना चाहिए. They should be exactly the same. So what we do is we convert this first expression to a form like this as well. So, that means to a form that is simplified. यहाँ पे हमारे पास brackets आ रहे हैं कुछ. It's a factorized form. We would simplify this as well, and then compare with the second form here. So let's see what I mean by that. We've got half n here, half n into 2a. We multiply that inside. What do we get? So let's actually simplify what is inside first. So we've got half n outside. Inside we've got 2a plus dn minus d. And now what we do is we multiply this half n inside as well. That gives us half into 2, which is going to get cancelled. And we have a times n plus dn into half n. That's going to be half dn squared minus d into half n. That is going to be half dn. This is the simplified form. Is this multiplication clear to everyone? How you're getting from this step to this step? इसमें कोई मसला तो नहीं है? You're just multiplying half n inside with every single term. Is that okay?
Yes.
So now we have this formula here, 2n squared plus 8n. Okay. In our form for Sn, we are getting 3 terms. We've got an, then we've got dn squared, then we've got dn again. What we can do is we can take the n terms together and n squared term together. So n square वाले तो एक ही term है, that's half dn square. वो हमने अलग कर ली. There are 2 terms in n, so they are an minus half dn. Since we want to compare with that form, we want to see कि यहाँ पे हमारे पास n square का coefficient क्या आ रहा है और n का coefficient क्या आ रहा है. दोनों के coefficients हमने यहाँ पे figure out करने हैं. So let me just have a look. So we've done, we've not done binomial. अच्छा, चलें. What we can do here is we can take n common. We can take n common. And it looks like this, half dn square plus a minus half d into n. तो हमने देखना है n का coefficient यहाँ पे क्या बनता है. We have 2 terms in n. So we take n common and we're left with a minus half d. So now we've got a form that is very similar to that. We've got something in terms of n square and n. n square का coefficient हमारे पास half d आ रहा है और n का coefficient a minus half d आ रहा है. What we were given there was Sn equal to 2n square plus 8 times n. Now since both of these have to be identical, वो भी इसी AP के sum का formula है. This is the sum formula for this particular AP, जिसको हम refer कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे. This is also the sum formula for the same AP. What that means is the coefficient of n square that we have in this formula and the coefficient of n square that we have here, they should be the same. And similarly, the coefficient of n that we have in this formula and the coefficient of n that we have in this formula, they have to be the same as well. So we compare the two. We say half d should be equal to 2, right? And a minus half d should be equal to 8 there. First equation से हमारे पास d की value आ जाएगी, which turns out to be 4. This is the difference. We input that value of d here. It becomes a minus half into 4 plus 8, and that gives you a equal to 10. And that's your first term. And that's what we were looking for. We were looking for the first term and the common difference. All we did was we used our sum formula from the formula sheet. We simplified that and then we compared with the formula that was given in the question. n square के coefficients को compare कर लिया और n के coefficients को compare कर लिया. We got the value of a and d from that. Okay, let's look at this part. Now it says the first 2 terms of a GP are 64 and 48. So we're talking about a GP here as well. It's a geometric progression. And we're given that the first 2 terms are 64 and 48. So 64 and 48. So if this is the GP and these are the first 2 terms, can we find the first term? That's actually pretty obvious. That's 64. That's given there. Can you find the ratio from this? What would the ratio be?
Yes, 0.75.
0.75, and how do we get that? We say 48 over 64. Next term divided by the previous term. So the ratio turns out to be 0.75. Okay. So we can find both of those things from this information just. A is 64 and ratio is 0.75. Now it says the first three terms of the GP are also the first term and the ninth term and the nth term respectively of an AP. Find the value of n. Okay. Achha, first three terms of the GP. We only have the first two terms right now. Can we find the third term from this? Third term kya hoegi? We know the ratio is 0.75, right?
36.
So we
48.
multiply 48 by 0.75 to get the next term. So we can say T3 is going to be 48 into 0.75, and that gives you 36. You could also use the term formula here. You get the same result from there. Agar aap a raised to power n minus 1 term formula use kar le, that's also fine. You'll get the same result. That's 36. So that's mein aapke paas kya hoega? 64 into 0.75 squared. You get 36 from that as well. So you can do it either way. Since aapko पिछली वाली term pata, next term ke liye you just multiply by 0.75 and you get the next term from that. Okay. We found the third term. Now we're given that the first three terms here, actually the first term, the ninth term, and the nth term of an arithmetic progression. So now we have some AP, we have some arithmetic progression. These three terms are also part of that arithmetic progression: 64, 48, and 36. However, we are given that this is the first term, 64 is still the first term. So this is our A. 48 is the ninth term. So that's T9, ninth term. Okay. 36 is the nth term. So that's Tn. This is what we've got. Now what we have to do is we have to find the value of n from that. N की value figure out करनी है. How can we do this? एक तो हमें पता है Tn, the nth term formula for an AP is A plus n minus 1 times the difference. That's the nth term formula for an AP. Mix नहीं करना, we're talking about AP here. So AP का formula nth term का ये होता है. We know the nth term, उसकी value is 36. We input 36 here. We know the first term is 64. We input that here as well. N की value हमें नहीं पता, n हमें figure out करना है. But we do not even know the difference. Difference भी नहीं पता हमें. Difference कैसे निकालेंगे? How
48 is equals to 64 plus 9 minus 1 into D.
Yes. So we have the ninth term given. तो ninth term को use करके हम किसी तरह से difference निकालते हैं. किस तरह से? Again, we know that the nth term formula is A plus n minus 1 into D. If we were to use this to find the ninth term, again, A is 64, n is 9, minus 1 times the difference. Ninth term is 48. So क्या करेंगे? इसको 48 से equate कर देंगे. We get 48 equals 64 plus 8 times D. And that gives us 8D equals minus 16 and D equals minus 2 from that. Difference minus 2 aa gaya. Once we have the difference, we can input that difference there in the other formula. And we get 36 equals 64 plus n minus 1 times that difference. We can find the value of n from here by just simplifying. So we have 36 equals 64 minus 2n plus 2. That gives us 2n equals 64 plus 2 minus 36. That's 2n equals 30 and n equals 15. So 15th term of this sequence will be 36. It says the first and second terms of an AP are 161 and 154. So we have an AP. We have an AP. And the first two terms are 161 and 154. The sum of the first m terms is 0. Find the value of m. Okay, so we have this AP. What is the first term? The first term is 161. What about the difference? What is the difference here? What is the difference? Is it 7?
-7.
It's going to be -7, right? Because it's decreasing. Decrease हो रहा है, next minus previous करते हैं. So difference is not 7, it's -7. We say D is equal to 154 minus 161, and that gives us -7. That's the difference. Now we're given the sum of the first m terms is 0. Sum formula क्या होता है हमारे पास? We know that Sn is equal to half n into 2a plus n minus 1 times the difference. We cannot use the other formula because we do not have the last term given, so we can't use that. We can't use that. We're given that the sum of the first m terms is 0. तो अगर हम n की जगह m डाल दें तो हमारे पास sum क्या आता है यहाँ पे? Half m, and we also input the value of a and d there. That's going to be 2 into 161 plus m minus 1 times the difference. The difference is -7. This sum is equal to 0. Yes, मैं बताया हुआ. So we get half m multiplied by 322 minus 7m plus 7. Okay. Now, what do we get from this? We get either half m equals 0, or we get 322 plus 7, that's actually 329 minus 7m equals 0. Right? दो चीजें multiply हो रही हैं, उनका product 0 है. That means either one is 0 or the other is 0. From the first one, we get m equals 0. Well, is that possible? Can m be equal to 0? Can m be equal to 0?
No.
It cannot be 0 because m is the number of terms, right? M terms की बात हो रही है. Now, the number of terms cannot be 0. If the number of terms was 0, it means the sequence does not even exist, right? So this is not possible. It cannot be 0. We solve the other one. We get 7m equals 329 from that. We can get the value of m from that. What do we get?
47.
47. So m is 47. That's the value of m. Okay. Let's look at the second part. Second part में वो कहता है there's a GP, and all the terms in that GP are positive. It has a common ratio of r. The sum of the first n terms is less than 90% of the sum to infinity. Okay, let's try to understand this. Sum of the first n terms, that's Sn. Sum of the first n terms, it's less than 90% of the sum to infinity. How do you write this? Less than what? Sum to infinity के साथ क्या आ रहा होगा? 90% of sum to infinity. How do you write that?
Multiply by 90 over 100.
Multiply by 90 over 100, right? So we're essentially looking for 90% into sum to infinity. 90% का मतलब है 90 over 100, or you can say 0.9. That is what you have. ठीक है? All you have to do now is input the formulas. आपको पता है कि sum to the n terms आपका geometric progression में क्या होता है? A into 1 minus r raised to power n divided by 1 minus r. और sum to infinity का formula क्या होता है? That is a over 1 minus r. You just input those values here. Sn की जगह पे आप वो डाल दो a into 1 minus r raised to power n divided by 1 minus r, and you get 9 over 10 into sum to infinity, which is a over 1 minus r. ठीक है? अच्छा यहाँ पे अच्छा सॉरी इक्वल नहीं है, it's less than that. Now what we can do is we can cancel out a. Can we do this cancellation? इसमें कोई मसला तो नहीं है? It's an inequality. Inequality के अंदर cancellation कर सकते हैं? Can we do cancellation like this in inequalities? Given that we do not know what a is.
No, sir.
Why not?
Because you can't get rid of the variable that's unknown.
Okay. And what exactly is the reason for that?
Sir, because we don't know that the two sides are equal, so we don't know कि मतलब we don't know
No, but
कि both sides are equal, so
But essentially what we're doing is we're taking this a to the other side and we're dividing here. And then they get cancelled. So उसमें इसका तो कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है वो equal है या नहीं है. We're just multiplying, right? So cross multiplication inequalities के अंदर कर सकते हैं आराम से. Is that a problem? Or can we do it? Remember मसला क्या होता है inequalities के अंदर? If number is negative number से अगर multiply करें या divide करें, the inequality sign changes. So if we do not know whether a is positive or negative, then it would be a problem because अगर negative होगा तो sign inequality का sign change हो जाएगा. So वो पर मसला होएगा. यहाँ पे उसने हमें बताया हुआ है all terms are positive. Since all terms are positive, that means the first term a also has to be positive. Since it is positive, that is why we can cancel it out. इसको हम cancel कर सकते हैं क्योंकि हमें पता है positive है. अगर positive हमें नहीं पता होता, हम cancel नहीं कर सकते थे फिर because क्योंकि हमें पता नहीं होता फिर inequality change होगा या नहीं होगा. It could be both positive or negative. If it could be both positive or negative, right? So we can cancel this out. Similarly, we can cancel 1 minus r and 1 minus r in denominator. What are we left with? We're left with 1 minus r raised to power n less than 0.9. You rearrange this, it becomes 0.1 less than r raised to power n, and r raised to power n is greater than 0.1. And this is what we had to show. R raised to power n greater than 0.1. Is this okay to everyone? Any questions on this? Okay, let's start with this. So there's a small trading company that made a profit of $250,000 in the year 2000. Okay, so we're starting from the year 2000. They made a profit of $250,000 in that particular year. The company considered two different plans, Plan A and Plan B, for increasing its profits. So we have two plans. One is Plan A and the other is Plan B. Under Plan A, the annual profit would increase each year by 5% of its value in the preceding year. So now we've got two plans for this, Plan A and Plan B, for increasing the profits. Under the first plan of Plan A, the profit would increase each year by 5% of its value in the preceding year. Now, what does that mean? If we are starting from 250,000, that was the profit in the year 2000. What would be the profit in the next year? क्या करेंगे? Into 105 over 100, we want to increase it by 5%. So this is one way to think about increasing or decreasing by a certain percentage. You say the original value was 100%, right? You want to increase it by 5%. What does that mean? You have 100% plus 5%. That's going to be the next value, which is essentially the same thing as 105% of the original value. अब इसी percentage को अगर आप decimals में convert कर दें, or you can say it's 105 over 100, अगर आप percent उसको fraction में रखो, and that's equivalent to 1.05. So essentially, if we want to increase something by if you want to increase something by 5%, it's the same thing as saying we want to multiply that number by 1.05. Does that make sense? So हमने 250,000 को increase करना है by 5%. That's the same thing as saying we want to multiply 250,000 by 1.05, which is 105%. Okay. So using this, you can get the second value. And then what happens? It increases each year by 5%. So 1.05 se multiply karenge, you'll get the next value. You get this value. Then you multiply that next value by 1.05. You'll get the value after that, and so on. So what type of a sequence is this? It's a geometric sequence, right? We've got a constant number being multiplied in order to get the next term, right? So this is a GP. Whenever you've got a percentage increase or a percentage decrease, it's going to be a geometric progression, okay? Because you're multiplying by the same number. So you say it's a GP, this sequence, where the first term is 250,000 and the ratio is what? 1.05. That's the ratio. And now you can use the GP formulas to calculate anything that you have to there. Is this all right to everyone? अच्छा, ये percentage में हमने यहाँ पे किया यहाँ पे. Let's actually try to understand that properly as well. We wanted to increase that by 5%. 5% से increase करना था. We ended up multiplying this by 1.05. Let's take a couple of other examples. We want to increase something by 15%. What do you multiply that? Multiply by in that case? 15% increase करने किसी चीज को क्या करेंगे? 100% plus 15%. What does that give you? 115%, and that's equivalent to 1.15. If you wanted to increase something by 15%, you would just multiply by 1.15. Is that okay? Similarly, if you wanted to decrease something by, let's say, 25%, what about that? क्या करेंगे? 75 over 100, which is the same thing as 0.75. So you multiply by 0.75 for that. So 100 में से हम क्या कर रहे होंगे यहाँ पे? We are subtracting 25, which is 75%, and that's the same thing as saying 0.75. So this is how you can calculate percentage increase or decrease quickly. इस number से बस multiply कर लें, ये आपकी ratio हो जाएगी. Okay, just one last thing. Let's say you want to decrease something by 2%. What about that? 0.98, right? So it's not going to be 0.8. It's going to be 0.98 because of 100 में से 2 minus कर रहे हो, that's 98%, and that represented as a decimal number as 0.98. ठीक है? So a percentage increase or decrease, therefore, is always going to be a GP like this, जहाँ पे ratio constant आ रही होगी आपकी. So now we've got this geometric progression, and the first term is 250,000, and the ratio is 1.05. Now let's see what we are asked to find there. It says for plan A, find the profit for the year 2008. 2008 का profit निकालना. Where did we start from? We started from the year 2000. The next would be 2001 after that, of course. And it keeps going on until 2008. We want to figure out what the value is for the year 2008. What do we do for this? We're looking for a specific term. And what term number is that? That's 9th term. It's not the 8th term. 2000 is one term plus the next eight terms, 1 se lekar 8 tak. So that's going to be the 9th term. All you're looking for is you're looking for the 9th term in that sequence. It's a geometric progression. What is the formula for the nth term of a GP? AR raised to power n minus 1. We just use that. We say we've got Tn equals AR raised to power n minus 1. We input values there. and it becomes 250,000 multiplied by the ratio. Ratio is 1.05 raised to power n minus 1, which is 9 minus 1, and you get your result from that. Okay, what do we get? Three six nine 363.86. So these are the profits for the year 2008. Okay. Okay. Now the second part says find the total profit for the 10 years from 2000 to 2009. हम start कहाँ से कर रहे थे? We were starting from 2000, तो वहीं से start करना है until 2009. That's 10 years. उन सब का total profit निकालना है. What do we do for this? Okay, we could do that. We could find the 2009 value term and then use the sum formula. But we have a direct formula for that as well. We could use the other form. You could say sum of a GP. In fact, this is a GP, right? So इसमें तो last term वाला वैसे ही हमारे पास नहीं formula होता था. That's for an AP. That's for an AP. So for a GP, we only have one formula for the sum, and that's Sn equals A into 1 minus r raised to power n divided by 1 minus r. What do you want to do? You want to find the sum of those 10 terms. Because we're going from 2000 to 2009, that's 10 terms in total. We want to find the sum of those 10 terms. You just have to input values in the formula. You say S10 is equal to A is 250,000, into 1 minus R, which is 1 minus 1.05 raised to power n. N is 10 divided by 1 minus 1.05. Doesn't really matter. If you want to do it that way, that's also fine. You can say r raised to power n minus 1 over r minus 1. That will be the same thing. It's not different. Okay, what do we get? 31444 73.134. So when you have such a large number, you can actually ignore the decimals. That's your choice. You can input there, and you can write the decimals if you want. You can ignore them as well. But that's the sum. This is the total profit for those 10 years. Does this make sense? Any problems? Okay, let's look at the next part. Now we've got the second plan. Under plan B, the annual profit would increase each year by a constant amount D. What type of a sequence is this? It's an AP, right? The difference is constant. हर दफा आप D add कर रहे हो. Find the value of D for which the total profit for the 10 years, inclusive, yani 2000 and 2009, both are included, would be the same for both plans. So we have to find the value of the difference such that the sum remains the same as the one that we got under plan A. What do we do for this? Sum remains the same. We have already found the sum in the earlier part, right? So all we have to do is we find the sum of this AP and we put that equal to the sum that we found earlier, right? So now we've got an AP. First of all, let's note that down. We are talking about an AP here. And for that AP, what is the first term? Sorry? The first term still remains the same, right? Start to उसने 250,000 से किया है. That is still 250,000. Okay. What about the difference? We don't know what the difference is. उसने कहा difference is capital D. So we use that. This is what we know for the AP. Now, how do you find the sum of an AP? We have the formula for that. That looks like this. Sn equals half n into 2a plus n minus 1 times the difference. That's the sum formula for an AP. We just input values there. What are we looking for? We're looking for the sum to the 10 terms. So n की value 10 है. That's S10 equals half into 10. 2 into A is 250,000. Plus n minus 1, again, that's 10 minus 1 times the difference. The difference is D. This is what we've got. That's the sum of this AP. And we know that this sum has to be the same as the sum that we found in the earlier part. उससे equate कर देंगे. Sum to the 10 terms की value हम यहाँ पे क्या लिख देंगे? We say this is 3144473.13 equals 5 into 500,000 plus 9 times D. And then you solve this for D, आपके पास D की value यहाँ से आ जाएगी. Okay, so you can solve this and see what we get. 5 को जाके divide कर दे वहाँ पे. What will you get from that? Three one four 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 seven three divided by 5. What is that? 628894.63. Okay, so 9D therefore becomes 500,000 को इससे subtract कर दें. You get 1288894.63 and you get your value of D from there. What do we get? 14321.6. That is the difference that we were looking for. So the first term of an arithmetic progression and the common is A and the common difference is D. So we have an AP. The first term is A, the difference is D, where difference is not equal to 0, D is not equal to 0 because अगर D 0 होएगा तो फिर तो we'll have the terms being repeated, right? We have the same term being repeated. First of all, it says write down expressions in terms of A and D for the 5th term and the 15th term. It's an AP. We know that the formula for an AP, nth term formula for an AP is A plus n minus 1 times the difference. T5, A plus n minus 1, 5 minus 1, that's 4D. T15, again, A plus 15 minus 1, that's 14 plus 14D. Right, so that's all you have to do in the first part. You have to write down these expressions. Now in the second part, it says the first term, the 5th term, and the 15th term of the AP are the first 3 terms of a geometric progression. So these 3 terms of the AP, अच्छा AP के first 3 terms हमारे पास क्या होंगी? So let's call this term 1, term 2, term 3. We know that that for the AP, the first term is represented by A. The second term, no, not the second term. We found the 5th term and the 15th term. 5th term and 15th term. The 5th term is A plus 4 times D, and the 15th term is A plus 14 times D. So this is what we have found in the first part. Now we are told that these terms are the first 3 terms of a GP. So now we've got some geometric progression. इसकी first 3 terms आपके पास ये तीनों हैं. Okay, so that was for the AP first, and now we've got a GP. जिसकी first three terms हमारे पास क्या आ रही हैं? A plus 4D and A plus 14D. These are the first three terms of a GP. We have to show that 3A equals 8 times D. We have to show this relationship between A and D. What can we do? First three terms of the GP are given. We can find expression for the first terms of the GP. Okay. How will we do that? T1 is just A, so that's pretty straightforward. Second term is going to be AR, and the third term is going to be AR square. And then you're saying we equate it with each of these, and then we eliminate R from that somehow, and we can do that. Yeah, so this will work. Yes, this will work. Is there a quicker way of thinking about this? So what you're saying is, we write down the three terms of the GP in terms of the nth term formula of the GP. Nth term formula of GP क्या होता है? That is Tn equals AR raised to power n minus 1. Using this formula, we can write down the first three terms of the GP. And then we say कि अच्छा, AR should be equal to A plus 4D and AR square should be equal to A plus 14D. And then we have some equations उसमें से R को eliminate कर दें तो A और D की terms में कुछ आ जाएगा. That will work, but it'll require some working. We can actually do this quicker. Any other idea? Remember what makes a GP a GP? Why do we call this a GP? Because the ratio is constant. Ratio between consecutive terms is constant. That means we're multiplying by the same number to get this, and we're multiplying by the same number to get this thing. How do we calculate ratio? How do we calculate ratio? Ratio का हमने कहा था, ratio is you take any two consecutive terms, and the ratio would be the next term divided by the previous term. Now, what do we understand from that? If we were to take these two terms, A plus 4D and A, how can you find the ratio from this? It will be A plus 4D divided by A. That will be the ratio, right? But you can find the same ratio using these two terms as well. The next two consecutive terms, उसमें से भी next divided by previous कर लें. So we could also say A plus 14D over A plus 4D. This also gives us the same ratio. And there we have an equation. We've got this relationship between A and D. Now we can just try to simplify this. We will somehow get that form that we need. We've got the relationship between A and D. So two variables हैं. A, D. इनको आप simplify कर लोगे, you'll get that relationship somehow. So we've got this equation. Let's simplify this. We cross multiply. That gives us A plus 14D. No, that's A plus 4D whole squared. When A plus 4D goes there and gets multiplied by A plus 4D, you get square. On the other side, we've got A into A plus 14D. Okay. Now we simplify this, and that gives us A square plus 8AD plus 16D square on the left side. A plus B whole square, that's A square plus 2AB plus B square. इसको expand कर लिया. On the right side, we have A square plus 14AD. Okay. We take everything to one side. What does that give us? A square plus 8AD plus 16D square minus A square minus 14AD equals 0. A square and A square get cancelled. We are left with 16D square. This is 8AD, this is minus 14AD. We can subtract them. That's minus 6AD equals 0. Okay? We take D common. That gives us 16D minus 6A equals 0. And from that we get either D equals 0 or 16D minus 6A equals 0. These are the two possibilities that we have. We have two expressions being multiplied and the product is equal to 0. That means either the first one is 0 or the second one is 0. दोनों में से एक को 0 होना आएगा. So D equals 0. If the difference is 0, then it's the same term being repeated. And we were given that D is not equal to 0. So we ignore that possibility. We say this is not possible because we were given that D is not equal to 0. What else do we have then? We have 16D equals 6A. We can simplify this and that gives us 8D equals 3A. And that is what we wanted to show there. 3A equals 8D. And we have that here. So the first term of an AP is 8 and the common difference is D, where again D is not equal to 0. So we have an AP. The first term is 8. Okay, now it's very similar to what we've just done. It says the first term, the fifth term, and the eighth term of this AP are the first term, the second term, and the third term respectively of a GP. Right? So the first, fifth, or eighth terms are what GP के first three terms are. So what can we do? We can write down these terms. Let's actually write those down. We have term 1, term 5, and term 8. These are the three terms of AP that we are interested in. What's the first term? We know that the first term is 8. You know, A is 8. What about the fifth term? Fifth term kya hogi? We don't know that exactly, of course, but we can write that in terms of D. 8 plus 4D, right? So we know that the term formula for an AP is given by this. Tn equals A plus n minus 1 times the difference. That's the term formula for an AP. We just input values in that, put n equals 5. N की value 5 input कर दें, so we get 8 plus 5 minus 1, which is 4. So that's 4D. And similarly for term number 8, 8 is the first term, n is 8, so 8 minus 1, which is 7, 7 times D. That's the 8th term of the AP. Is this fine? So that's our AP. Then we have our GP as well, so geometric progression. We've got the first term of that, the second term of that, and the third term. We are given that they are the same. The first term, second term, and third term of this are the same as the first three terms of the GP. What about the first term? That's 8 again. How can we write down the second and third terms of the GP? What about the term formula for this? AR raised to power n minus 1. So the second term is going to be 8, that's A, our first term, into R raised to power n minus 1, which is 2 minus 1, so that's just R. What about the third term? That's 8R raised to power 3 minus 1, which is 8R squared. These are the three terms of the GP. And now we know that they were equivalent. The fifth term of AP should be the same as the second term of GP. The eighth term of AP should be the same as the ninth term of GP. The 10th term of AP should be the same as the 11th term of GP. The 12th term of AP should be the same as the 13th term of GP. The 14th term of AP should be the same as the 15th term of GP. The 16th term of AP should be the same as the 17th term of GP. The 18th term of AP should be the same as the 19th term of GP. The 20th term of AP should be the same as the 21st term of GP. The 22nd term of AP should be the same as the 23rd term of GP. The 23rd term of AP should be the same as the 24th term of GP. The 25th term of AP should be the same as the 26th term of GP. The 26th term of AP should be the same as the 27th term of GP. The 27th term of AP should be the same as the 28th term of GP. The 28th term of AP should be the same as the 29th term of GP. The 29th term of AP should be the same as the 30th term of GP. The 30 as this third term of GP. And the first terms are, of course, also the same, 8 and 8. These are equivalent. Achha, the first one gives us 8 equals 8. That's not very interesting. We know 8 equals 8. The fifth term and the second term, they give us an equation, and that's 8 plus 4d equals 8 times r. So I to write down two equations connecting d and r. So that's what we're doing. We have one equation here. 8 plus 4d equals 8r. Similarly, we can form another equation that's 8 plus 7d equals 8r square, because जो AP की 8th term थी, that had to be the same as the third term of the GP. Okay, so we equate those here as well. And now we have to show that R equals 3 over 4, and we also have to find the value of D. Okay, R or D की values find करनी है. We have simultaneous equations. We can just solve those simultaneous equations. We will get the values of R and D from this. Okay, so let's solve them. How can you solve these? We've got a quadratic equation and a linear equation. कैसे solve करते थे इनको? Make the same variable the subject in both of them. Should we make R the subject? Or we can do substitution. In that case, we're saying R को यहाँ पे subject बना के उसमें जाके input कर दें, so that's fine. If we want to make the same variable the subject in both of them, we should make D the subject, because that's not quadratic. Square root नहीं लेना पड़ेगा. In the first case, we get 2 plus D equals 2R. So simplify करके, and then D equals 2R minus 2. We can either just input this in the other equation, or we can make D the subject from the other equation as well, and that gives us 8R square minus 8 divided by 7. So we've got D the subject in both of them. Now we just equate them, and we get 2R minus 2 equals 8R square minus 8 over 7. It's a quadratic equation that you know how to solve. इसको solve कर लें. 14R minus 14 equals 8R square minus 8. And that gives us 8R square minus 14R plus 6 equals 0. We simplify this a bit. That gives us 4R square minus 7R plus 3 equals 0. Can you factorize this? 4 into 3 is 12. Add करके, we can do 4 and 3, right? 4R square minus 4R minus 3R plus 3 equals 0. We take 4R common. That gives us R minus 1 inside, and minus 3 common. That gives us R minus 1. We've got two factors, 4R minus 3 and R minus 1 equals 0. So R either equals 3 over 4 or R equals 1. We've got these two possibilities. So we can't have R equals 1, because if that's the case, all the terms will be the same. 1 से multiply करेंगे, next term भी वही आ जाएगी. If the first term was 8 here, if the ratio was 1, we would get all terms equal to 8. Which is fine, इसमें कोई मसला तो नहीं है वैसे. But the problem is, if all terms of this GP are the same, that means all terms of the AP will also be the same. और AP का उसने कहा हुआ है कि D cannot be 0. And that is the reason that we say it should not be 1. R 1 नहीं हो सकता. क्योंकि D 0 उसने restriction लगाई है, D 0 नहीं हो सकता. Okay? You will get in all cases, actually, you will never have R equal to 1. Although theoretically, there's nothing wrong with that. You can say it's a GP with R equals 1. इसमें कोई मसला नहीं है. But that's not very interesting, right? You've got the same number being repeated. So you won't really get those cases where R would be 1 or D would be 0. Those cases are आपके पास नहीं आ रहे होंगे. ठीक है? If you do get them, you will figure out कि उनको किसी वजह से ignore करना होगा आपको. In this case, you say this is not possible because you know that D जो है वो 0 नहीं हो सकता. तो R भी 1 नहीं हो सकता इस वजह से. So we've got the value of R here. How do you find D? We've got that relationship above. D equals 2R minus 2. We input it here. D turns out to be 2 into 3 over 4 minus 2. That gives us 3 over 2 minus 2, which is 1.5 minus 2, and that is minus 0.5. That's the difference. अगर आप ये R equals 1 input करते हैं इसके अंदर, you would have got D equals 0, which you said was not possible. Right? So इसलिए हम इसको इग्नोर कर रहे हैं. So even if you were to do it further, अगर आप इसको इस पॉइंट पे नहीं इग्नोर करते, let's say, you would figure out later that this case is not possible. And therefore the previous case R equals 1 would also not be possible. Right? अगर आप यहाँ पे आपको realize नहीं भी होता, you would have realized it later that D is turning out to be 0. इसलिए आपको इसको ignore करना होगा. You cannot consider that. So R is therefore 3 over 4 and D is minus 0.5. Any questions? No? So that was the second part here. No, that was the first part. We had to show that R equals 3 over 4. We have shown that. And we had to find the value of D. We found the value of D there as well. Now it says in the second part, find the sum to infinity of the GP. Sum to infinity कैसे निकालते हैं? It's A over 1 minus R. We already have the value of A. A was 8. R is also given, that's 3 over 4. We just have to apply the formula. There's nothing really complicated there. So इसके अंदर values input करनी है, right? That's pretty straightforward. Second part, sum to infinity of the GP, that's A over 1 minus R. A was 8, R was 3 over 4. We'll get 1 minus 3 over 4 there, 8 over 1 over 4, and that is 32. That's your sum to infinity. Right? Formula के अंदर सिर्फ values input कर दी. Let's look at the last part. It says find the sum of the first 8 terms of the AP. Again, that's a simple application of the formula. Sum formula is A into, okay, it's an AP. AP की first 8 terms का sum निकालना. That is half n into 2a plus n minus 1 times the difference. Now we know everything about the AP as well. 8 terms का निकालना, so n is 8, half into 8. What about the first term? The first term was 8 for this as well. N is 8 minus 1 times the difference. The difference is minus 0.5. We found that in the earlier part. वो input कर देंगे वहाँ पे. And now we just need to simplify this. That's going to be 4 into 16. 7 into 0.5, that is 3.5. And you'll get something from here. 12.5 into 4, that is 50, right? Sum of the first 8 terms is 50. Right? An AP contains 25 terms and the first term is minus 15. So it's an AP. First term is minus 15 and there are 25 terms in total. The sum of all the terms in the progression is given to be 525. Sum of all terms, that means sum of those 25 terms, right? 25 terms total. So we're given that S25 is equal to 525. Now it says find the common difference of this progression. Difference find karna. We've got A. We've got sum to 25 terms. That's 525. We have to find the value of D. So remember which formula has all of these things, A, D, and S. Some formula, that's the one that's without the last term, right? So वो वाला formula यहाँ पे apply कर देंगे. We've got Sn equals half n into 2a plus n minus 1 times the difference. You will see this will be the more common formula that you use for the sum. Last term वाला बहुत rarely use हो रहा होता है. We just input values here. We say S25 find कर लेते हैं. Half into 25 multiplied by 2 into a, which is minus 15, plus n minus 1. 25 minus 1, that's multiplied by d, and the difference is unknown. वो आपको निकालना. Now S25 was given to be 525. इसको 525 से equate कर देंगे. We have half into 25 here, minus 30 plus 24 times d. And now we just need to simplify and find the value of d from there. Okay, so what do we get? We get 1050 on this side. That's equal to 25 into minus 30. That is minus 750. Plus 25 into 24. 600 d. So now 600 d is equal to 1800, and the difference turns out to be equal to 3. Okay, that's what we were looking for. Achha, so then it says find the last term in the progression. There are 25 terms in total, so we're just looking for 25th term. So term formula se kar sakte hain. Is there any other possibility? Some formula जो a plus n वाला था, उसके अंदर आप l की वैल्यू निकाल सकते हो. So you can do it either way. Term 25 चाहिए. The term formula is Tn equals a plus n minus 1 times the difference. A is given. A was minus 15 plus n minus 1. So that's 25 minus 1 times the difference. The difference is 3. And that gives us minus 15 plus 24 into 3, which is 72. And that turns out to be 57. So the 25th term is 57. Okay, just input values in the term formula and you get that. So then it says find the sum of all the positive terms in the progression. Sum of all the positive terms. अभी देखिए sequence कहाँ से start हो रहा था? It was starting from something negative, minus 15 से start हुआ, and then it's going until 25 terms because the difference is 3. The values बढ़ती जा रही हैं. They're going to get positive at some point. We only have to find the sum of the positive terms. How can you figure this out? Sum of only the positive terms. How is the sequence going to look like? It's going to be easier to think of it that way. It starts from minus 15. Then you've got minus 12, you've got minus 9, and so on. It goes on until 57. The last term was 57. It's going like this. Do we know the sum of all of these terms? We know the sum of all terms, right? The sum of all these terms is 525. So we know the sum to the 25 terms is 525. We are only looking for the sum of the positive terms. What can we do now? Subtract the negative terms from this. You can do it manually because there's just 5 values. You don't have to use. Yes, you can use formula if you want, but it's not really needed because you've got minus 9, then you've got minus 6, minus 3, 0, and so on. After that point, it's going to become positive. You're going until 57. You only have these terms here. Since the total sum was 525, if you were to take out these negative terms from this, you will get the sum of only the positive terms. इन सब का sum was 525. Sum of positive terms is equal to total minus the sum of negative terms. वो हमने उसमें subtract कर देनी है. What was the total? That was 525. We subtract from that minus 15, minus 12, minus 9, minus 6, minus 3. That's going to be 9 into 5, which is 45. So that's 525 minus 45, and that gives you 580. Or that's 70? That's 70. 570. That's the sum of the positive terms. ठीक है, total sum में से हमने negative terms को निकाल दिया, and we got the sum for all the other terms. Any issues with this? Yes. Because we have excluded the negative terms. They were bringing the sum down. So that's why this is greater than that. Any questions on this? Okay, the second part involves some scenario. I'll just read through it and you can do it. A college agrees to a sponsorship deal in which grants will be received each year for sports equipment. The grant will be $4,000 in 2012 and will increase by 5% each year. What type of a sequence is that? It's a GP with ratio 1.05. Right? So it's going to increase by 5%. Ratio 1.05. The first term is 4,000. Value of the grant in 2022. What are we looking for? 11th term. 2012 से 2022 तक वो आपकी 11th term होगी, because 2021 से start करोगे. Sorry, 2012 से start करोगे. Until 2021, 10 years will be done. And then you've got 2022, that will be the 11th year. If you're confused about it, just count them, okay? And you'll understand. The total amount the college will receive in the years 2012 to 2022 inclusive. Again, that's 11 years in total. You just have to find the sum of all those terms. It's a GP. The GP ka sum formula apply kar denge for those 11 terms. And you can figure that out. Is that okay? All right, let's look at this. So there's a television quiz show that takes place every day. Is this readable, people at the back? No? Any better? Okay. So a television quiz show takes place every day. On day 1, the prize money is $1,000. If this is not won, the prize money is increased for day 2. So we are starting from $1,000 and then it keeps on increasing. The prize money is increased in a similar way every day until it is won. The television company considered the following 2 models for increasing the prize money. There's model 1 that says increase the prize money by $1,000 each day. So if you are starting from 1,000, for instance, what would be the prize money in the next day? 2,000, and you just keep on increasing by 1,000 every day. Okay. Now, what type of a sequence is that? It's an AP. We have a constant difference, so we say it's an AP, and the first term of that AP is 1,000. What about the difference? That's also 1,000. So next term minus the previous term. You can take any consecutive terms and subtract the next term minus the previous. So we have 1,000 from there. That's an AP. So that's what we understand. That's model 1. And the model 2 says the prize money increases by 10% each day. What type of a sequence is that? That's a GP, 10% increase. What does that mean? 0.1? किससे मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे? 1.1 से. 0.1 will give you just that 10%. But if the initial amount was 1,000, you have to increase it by 10%. So 0.1 plus 1 karna padega. So that's 1.1 in total. Or you can say 100% plus 10%. That's 110%. Uski decimal representation is 1.1. So you say the first term here is 1,000 and the ratio is 1.1. That's a GP. The second one is a GP. Okay, so that's what we have here. First part was the model 1 ka kaha hai, second part the model 2 ka kaha hai. But what exactly do we have to find? On each day, the prize money is not one. The television company makes a donation to charity. The amount donated is 5% of the value of the prize on that day. Okay, so every day, 5% of the amount is donated to charity. If the prize is not won, after 40 days, the prize money has still not been won. So 40 days ho gaye hain, and we have to calculate the total amount donated to charity. The total amount donated to charity, this is what we have to calculate. What is happening every single day? 5% donate kar rahe hain. Now, there could be two ways of thinking about this. You could calculate 5% for every day separately, right? For example, 1,000 ka 5% kya hoega? 50. 5% of 2,000, that will be 100. 5% of 3,000, that will be 150. So you get another AP from that. You can add all of them up for the 40 terms, for the 40 days. Does that make sense? So that's one idea. But it's actually quicker to just look at this original sequence. This is what is happening to the prize money every single day. It's increasing by 1,000. So it's going to go on until on the 40th day, for instance, it's going to be 40,000, right? On the 40th day, it's going to be 40,000. What we can do is we can find the sum of the prize money for all of these 40 days, and then we can calculate 5% of that, right? That will be the same. Does that make sense? So we can either calculate 5% for every single day separately, or unko sum kar le, or we can sum everything first, and then we can calculate 5% of the total. Right, so this is quicker because we already have a sequence there. Hum inko sum kar lete hain. We say, let's find sum of the 40 terms. How do you do that? We have the sum formula for an AP that looks like this. Sn equals half n into 2a plus n minus 1 times the difference. We just input values here in the formula. S40, so that's half into 40, multiplied by 2 into 1,000, plus n minus 1, n is 40, so that's 39, into the difference is also 1,000. So that's what we've got. We simplify this, we get 20 multiplied by 2,000 plus 39,000, that's going to be 41,000. And that gives you 820,000. This is the sum of the prize money for 40 days. Is that okay? For the first 40 days, the sum of all the prize money was 820,000. Now, every day, 5% of this was donated to charity. So whatever is the total, we can calculate 5% of that, and that will give us the total amount donated to charity. So what do we get from that? We have total amount donated to charity. How would we calculate that? 820,000 ka 5%. So multiplied by 5%, or you can say 5 over 100. And you can see what that turns out to be. What is this? 41,000? Okay, so this is 41,000. This is the total amount donated to charity in those 40 days. Is this clear to everyone? Yes. Yes, so we could do the other way. as well. Let's do it on the side here. So the sequence was 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and so on. Charity amounts would be 5% of this, which is 50, 100, 150, and so on all the way until 40 terms. This is 40 terms in total. Actually, Upper, we could actually use the last term formula as well. The sum formula that includes the last term will be used because we knew that the last term was 40,000. We could have used that. So that's just something that came to my mind. Okay, so this is 50, 100, 150. This is the sequence for the amounts donated every single day. Right, 50, 100, 150. Now this is another AP. What is the first term for this AP? What's the difference? That's also 50. We can find the sum of all those 40 terms here. That's half into n, which is 40, into 2 times 8, that's 2 times 50, plus n minus 1, that's 50 minus 1 times the difference. And you can evaluate this. This is 20 into 100 plus 49 times 50. What's that? 2450. What do we get from this? No. So I did something wrong there. What's this? 49 into 50? It's 40 minus 1. Yeah, so something seemed wrong there. Okay. So it's 40 minus 1, n minus 1, that's 40 minus 1. 39 into 50? 1950. So that's 2050 into 20, which is 41,000. So you get the same thing from there. Basically, what's happening is, what we're doing is, let's say we got some amounts, A, B, C, D, and so on. And we had to, let's say we had to calculate 5% of each of them. Okay, I'll just erase that. You got A plus B plus C plus D. Let's say you got these 4 amounts. If we calculate their 5% separately and then add them, what do we get? 5 over 100 into B, 5 over 100 into C, 5 over 100 into D. What we're doing here is we're calculating 5% separately and then adding them, right? It's the same thing as saying if we were to take that 500 common, what are we left with inside? A plus B plus C plus D, that we could actually just add all of them up first and then take the 5%. So it's the same thing, doesn't really matter, right? So if we calculate 5% for each of them separately and then add them, or add them first and then take 5%, it's the same thing because we're essentially just taking 5% common outside. Pehle add kare, uske baad 5% kare. So both are okay. Is that all right? Okay. Let's look at part 2. Now in part 2, it says what happens if model 2 is used. Model 2 mein kya hoega? Again, we are starting from 1,000. Starting from 1,000. And then since it's a 10% increase every day, that means 100% plus 10%, that's 110%, and that's the same thing as saying 1.1. So essentially what we're doing is, in order to get the next term, we have to multiply by 1.1. So for instance, in this case, the next term would be 1,100 and so on. So now this is a GP. This is a geometric progression because the ratio is constant. The first term of this GP is 1,000. The ratio is 1.1. And now again, what we can do is we can calculate sum of those 40 terms and then calculate 5% of that. So prize money का sum calculate कर ले. Because what are we looking for? 40 days के लिए, what is the total amount donated to charity, right? So we calculate the sum of the prize money for those 40 days, and then we can find 5% of that. So how do you find the sum of the prize money for 40 days? It's a GP now. We know that the sum of a GP is given by A into 1 minus R raised to power n over 1 minus R. We just input values there. We're looking for a sum of 40 terms. A is 1000. R is 1.1. N is 40. And that's it. You can calculate the sum of the 40 terms from here. What do we get? 442592 0.55 0.55. And then all you have to do is you calculate 5% of that amount donated to charity. That will be 442,592.55 multiplied by 5 over 100, and you get some value from that. What do we get? $9.6. Okay, so 22,129.6. That's the amount donated to charity. So a GP has a third term of 20 and a sum to infinity, which is 3 times the first term. Okay, so it's a GP first of all. You have to be careful, use the formulas for GP and not for AP. The third term is 20, so we know that T3 is equal to 20. The sum to infinity, so that's S infinity, is 3 times the first term, so that's 3 times A. Okay? This is what we are given. We have to find the first term of this. First term यानी कि A find करना है. ठीक है? अच्छा, what is the term formula for a GP? I'm going to write the formulas here on the side. Term formula is AR raised to power n minus 1. The other thing that's important here is sum to infinity. That is A over 1 minus R. So for the first relationship here, T3 equals 20, we use the term formula. We say AR raised to power 3 minus 1 should be equal to 20. And that gives us AR square equal to 20. That's one equation that we have. From S infinity equals 3A, we get A over 1 minus R equal to 3 times A. Now again, the first term cannot be 0, so we can cancel this out. A और A cancel कर सकते हैं. That gives us 1 equals 3 minus 3R. 3R equals 2 and R equals 2 over 3. R की value 2 over 3 आ गई यहाँ से. I just cross multiplied. मैंने इसको जाके multiply कर दिया 3 के साथ. I got 3 minus 3R from there. Then I just simplified and I got the value of R. Now I can input this value of R back in this equation to get the value of A from there as well. So we have A into 2 over 3 whole squared equals 20. Okay, we simplify this. We get 4A divided by 9 equals 20. And A is going to be 20 into 9, which is 180 divided by 4. And that's going to be 45. So the first term is 45. Does that make sense?
Sir, could you explain why you got A in the second part?
We are just saying A over 1 minus R equals 3A. This is what we had. What if we take this A to the other side and divide it? So this becomes
Okay. Thank you.
1 over A. We cancel it. We can only do this because we know that A is not equal to 0. If A was 0, then we could not do this cancellation because then it would become undefined. Denominator में 0 आ जाएगा. So that's something that we cannot do. But in this case, we could just cancel them out because we know that A is not 0. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So that's the value of A, which is 45. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, let's look at the second part. We have an AP that is such that the 8th term is 3 times the 3rd term. Okay. So we have the second part of this. We've got an AP. 8th term is 3 times the 3rd term. How do you write that? You say T8 is equal to 3 times T3. Right? That's what it means. 8th term is 3 times the 3rd term. Show that the sum of the first 8 terms. So आपको show क्या करना है? Show that sum of the first 8 terms, that's S8, is equal to 4 times the sum of the first 4 terms. So that's 4 into S4. This is what we have to show. Okay? And do we have any other information? No. So that's all. We're given that T8 equals 3 times T3, and using that, we have to show that S8 is 4 times S4. Let's think about this. Let's use this first relationship. T8 equals 3 times T3. Remember, we cannot use this relationship. ये आपको show करना है. We cannot start with this assumption. ये आप कहीं पे use नहीं कर सकते. ये आपने सिर्फ end पे eventually show करना है कि ये आपके पास आता है result. So let's look at the first relationship, that T8 equals 3 times T3. You're talking about an AP. AP के अंदर जो आपका nth term का formula होता है, that's given by Tn equals A plus n minus 1 times the difference. Again, it's given in the formula sheet. You can see that from there. So T8, what is that going to be? It will be A plus n minus 1, so that's 8 minus 1 times the difference. That is equal to 3 into A plus 3 minus 1 times the difference. And we get A plus 7D equal to 3A plus 2 into 3, which is 6D from that. We can simplify this and it becomes D equal to 2 times A. So we have this relationship between D and 2A. Does this make sense?
Yes, sir.
So we've got this relationship between the difference and the first term, that D equals 2 times the first term. Now, let's look at S8 and S4. How can we find those two things? S8 कैसे find कर सकते हैं? S4 कैसे find कर सकते हैं? Again, this is an arithmetic sequence. We have two formulas for the sum of the AP. Let me show them to you. So you got these two formulas. Which one should we use? Which one should we be using?
Second one?
Second one, right? Because we're not given the last term. The second formula is going to work in every single case, right? So if you do not have the last term, you just use this one. So that's the sum formula. We say the sum formula is given by this. It's Sn equals half n into 2a plus n minus 1 times the difference. ठीक है, ये आपके पास sum formula होता है. We can find S8. What is S8 going to be? Just input values. Half into 8 into 2 times A plus 8 minus 1 times the difference.
Which would be 2, right?
Which will be 2A, yes. So we can convert it to that. Let's do that in the next step. इसको हम यहाँ पे कर सकते हैं. It becomes 4 into 2 times A eight into get cancelled. यहाँ से हमें 4 मिल गया. So 4 into 2 times A plus 7D D की जगह we can input 2 times A. Okay. Now this becomes 4 into 2A plus 14 times A. That's 16A into 4, which is 64 times A. This is sum to the 8 terms in terms of A. Now this is in terms of A, but that's okay. This is in terms of A because in the end, we just need to find this relationship. तो वो A कहीं ना कहीं पे जाके कैंसिल हो जाएगा ऑटोमेटिकली. हमें सम की वैल्यू नहीं चाहिए, हमें ये रिलेशनशिप शो करना है. सो वी विल गेट दैट. A कैंसिल हो जाएगा कहीं पे जाके. Let's find S4 as well. So we have found S8 here. S4 भी find कर लेते हैं. Again, we apply the sum formula there. S4 equals 1 over 2 into 4 multiplied by 2 times A plus 4 minus 1 times the difference. Again, the 4 into outside, they get cancelled. And D inside, that can be replaced by 2 times A. Okay? Now this becomes 2 into 2A plus 6A, which is 8 times A. And that gives us 16 times A. This is S4. ठीक है. अब यहाँ से देख सकते हो. S8 was 64 times A. You can find 4 S4 from here. 4 से multiply करते हैं इसको. What do you get? You get 4 into 16 times A, and that is 64 times A. And they're equal. That's what we have to show. ठीक है. So S8 equals 4 times S4. A circle is divided into 6 sectors and so. Okay. Now think about it. What is the total angle in a circle? What's the total angle? What's the total angle in a circle?
360 degree.
360 degrees, right? How many angles are we talking about? We're talking about 6 sectors, so we're talking about 6 angles. तो जो हमारे पास sum होगा उन सारे angles का वो कितना होना चाहिए? Sum of those 6 angles, what should that be? Sum of those 6 angles should be 360 degrees. ठीक है?
Yes, sir.
You can deal with it in degrees or you can deal with it in terms of pi. That's your choice. आप दोनों में से as in radians में करना है, degrees में करना है, that's your choice. अच्छा, S6 हमारे पास sum of all those 6 angles it is 360 degrees. ठीक है? अच्छा, now they are in arithmetic progression. तो ये जो 6 terms है उनमें हमारे जो sum जो है वो 360 आ गया. The angle of the largest sector is 4 times the angle of the smallest sector. So if we say they are in ascending order, इसको ascending order में arrange करें, so our first term will be A, right? First term को हमने A कहा, तो what we can do is we can say the first term is, let's say, A. The largest angle is then going to be 4 times A. What is the largest angle? The 6th angle that we have. They're in arithmetic progression, right? So they are either in increasing order or decreasing order. या तो आप increasing order में कर रहे हो, decreasing order में कर रहे हो, right? तो यहाँ पे क्योंकि उसने कहा है largest sector 4 times है, तो अगर हम smallest से start करें उसको हम A कह लें, that's our first term. तो जो last term होगी 6th term, that is going to be 4 times that initial term. Does this make sense?
Yes, sir.
Now, using this, what we can do is we can find the perimeter of the smallest sector. Now, how do we think about this? Given that the radius of the circle is 5 centimeters. Radius is 5 centimeters. Find the perimeter. अच्छा, ये तो हम बाद में use कर लेंगे. Let's actually find these angles now. क्या हम angles find कर सकते हैं? We can use the sum formula. Sum formula हमारे पास क्या होता है? We have two formulas for sum, but now since we know the last term here as well, तो हम last term वाला formula use कर लेते हैं. That's going to be easier to use. Sn equals half n into a plus l, right? So what we can do is we can say the sum of the six terms is equal to half into n. N is 6. A, the first term is a. The last term in these six terms is 4 times a. The sum should be equal to 360. So we simplify this, we get 3 into a plus 4a, which is 5a. ठीक है, that gives us 120 equals 5 times a की वैल्यू आपके पास आ जाती है 24. So the smallest angle therefore is 24. This is your smallest angle in that arithmetic regression. ठीक है, अब उसने क्या कहा है, angle of smallest sector, you can say you have the smallest angle. उसने कहा find the perimeter of the smallest sector. Perimeter of the smallest sector, now it's a sector that looks like this. The angle is 24 degrees. The radius is 5. You can find the perimeter of the sector. ठीक है, आप degrees वाला formula use कर लें. Since we have the angle in degrees here, you want to convert it to radians और फिर आप use करना चाहें वो भी कर सकते हैं. So that's your choice. इसके आगे आप कर सकते हैं, right? Perimeter is going to be equal to 2 times 5, 2 times the radius plus the arc length. Arc length के लिए आप theta over 360 वाला formula use कर लें. अगर यहाँ पर degrees में कह रहे हैं तो आप वो use कर सकते हैं. You can say 24 over 360 into 2 pi into the radius, which is 5, and you'll get your perimeter from here. ठीक है? Okay, so an athlete runs the first mile of a marathon in 5 minutes. The speed reduces in such a way that each mile takes 12 seconds longer than the preceding mile. Given that the nth mile takes 9 minutes, find the value of n. Okay, so 12 seconds longer than the preceding mile. What type of a progression is this? What type of progression is this going to be? This is an AP or a GP?
Answer AP.
AP, right? So 12 seconds increase कर रहे हैं for every mile, right? So it's going to be an AP. That's the first thing that you notice. Now, what kind of an AP is this? The first mile takes 5 minutes. So the first term is 5. Acha, you have to take care of the units here. You've got some things in minutes and something in seconds. आगे भी उसने minutes की बात की हुई है. You either convert everything to minutes or convert everything to seconds, right? That's your choice. यहाँ पे seconds को हम अगर minutes में convert कर लें, 12 seconds जो है वो कितने minutes होएंगे? 12 over 60. That is going to be 0.2 minutes. Okay, so अगर first term 5 है, इसके बाद next क्या होएगा? 12 seconds longer है, right? So 5.2 हो जाएगा, then 5.4 and so on. So what is the difference then? The difference is 0.2. ठीक है, difference 0.2 है. अब उसने क्या कहा है? Nth mile takes 9 minutes. Find the value of n. So Tn is equal to 9. Ninth term जो है वो 9 के equal है. No, sorry, nth term जो है वो 9 के equal है. Nth term formula for AP, what's that? That's A plus n minus 1 times the difference, that equals 9. You know the value of A is 5, n is unknown, तो आपने figure out करना है. Into the difference 0.2, that equals 9. यहाँ से आपके पास n की value आ जाएगी. 0.2 n minus 0.2 equals 4. 0.2 n equals 4.2 and n equals 21. Okay, so that's the first part. Let's look at the second part. Second part में उसने क्या कहा है? Assuming that the length of the marathon is 26 miles, find the total time in hours and minutes to complete the marathon. देखिए उसने कहा है every mile takes 12 seconds longer than the preceding mile. So ये जो आपके पास numbers आ रहे हैं, these are times for running every single mile. So first mile takes 5, minutes, second mile takes 5.2 minutes, third mile takes 5.4 minutes. If you're talking about 26 miles, that means हम 26 terms की बात कर रहे हैं sequence के अंदर कि 26 terms होंगी, right? Because this is the first mile, this is the second mile, this is the time for the third mile, and so on until the 26th mile. That's what we need. 26th mile तक आपको क्या करना है? Total time find करना है. So basically, you're looking for the sum of all of these terms. In सारी sum terms का sum निकालना है because you've got the time for every mile given separately. You're given the time for the first mile, time for the second mile, time for the third mile. You want the sum of all of them. अब क्या करो? Sum of those 26 terms. ठीक है? So you can use the other formula, half n into 2a plus n minus 1 into d. इसमें आपने 26 वैल्यू इनपुट कर देनी है n की, a और d की वैल्यूज आपके पास सम आ जाएगा.